mental health. I'm kind of going crazy over here. So is the entire Digital Drop podcast crew. We're barely making it. This podcast is the only thing keeping us from going totally insane. And what are we doing all day? We're just looking at social media all day long. Crazy news with kill counts, with crazy things happening in the world, people freaking out, and just the normal insanity of social media. How do you maintain your mental health while using social media today and in general? Well, as people that have to do it for a living and who have to do it as regular people, we're consuming social media all day long, even more than you probably, and way more than the average person. We're going to talk about our best practices to maintain a good mindset as much as you can and keep your head on straight when using social media, because it can get pretty out of control with information overload, that fire hose of internet madness shooting into your brain every day. Andrew Perrin, are you doing okay?
I'm hanging in there. I'm glad to be on the show. This show helps. It's very good for my mental health. Actually, I'm really excited to talk about this stuff. I've got a lot of tips that I've had to learn over the years, so hopefully you guys find it helpful.
That's great. Yeah, especially when you're doing social monitoring, right? And you're monitoring brands and you're like specifically looking for weirdos that are talking about weapons or children or all the worst stuff on the internet.
When your job is to focus on the negative, yeah, it can be rough. It can be rough.
That can be bad, yeah. Ross A. Dillon, are you doing okay over there? Or are you going a little crazy?
Maybe a little bit of a mixture of both. Just depends on, what you're dealing with at 1 hour. Maybe 1 hour, you're doing good. The next hour, they throw a little teaspoon of crazy into the social media mix. And the next thing you know, you're laying on the couch with a pillow over your head. But yeah, other than that, doing fantastic.
Wow. And Ross is super loud right now too. And so he's like clearly going extra crazy. That's great, man. Pillow over your face. I understand. Look, the main issue I see with social media and my own usage, just to kick things off, is overusage. That seems to be like the main thing. And if you're using social media all day, especially if you're a creator, you're trying to do a side hustle, you're trying to interact with your audience, whatever it may be, if you're using social media all day, the question is, when does your brain get to take a break? Because our brains are not designed to basically interact with this many people and consume this much finite information from human beings as we get right now from our phones and from our computers. We're designed to be out in nature and consuming way less information and way more just natural visual information than all this digital information that comes in. And so the number one thing that helps me is whenever my brain starts to hurt a little bit, when it starts to feel like too much, I just put my phone down and I walk away. And a little bit of a nuance there. If you're feeling like, the internet and social media is maybe hurting you or it's not helping your mental state, getting up and walking away with your phone versus without your phone is a huge, huge difference. Just having your phone in your back pocket, even if you're not looking at it, I think provides the presence of maybe whatever negative things that were happening on the internet or overload that was happening on the internet. It can still kind of impose that on you just by having this device even sitting around. That's one thing I've noticed. Well, how about you guys? How do you disconnect from social media and how do you guys take a break after chugging the fire hose all day?
I try to set up, especially since managing social media, not just my own, but having clients and even more than one client, and which means each client normally has more than one social account. So it's a lot of social accounts, right? The biggest thing for me is managing the time in which I am logged in and doing social media versus not, and separating that very consciously, making it very clear where like there's a delineation where these hours is social media, these hours absolutely no social media. In order to do that, it's also about controlling notifications. So there's a lot of things that we kind of are used to now through social media that we don't realize are social media anymore, like texting. Texting is so natural for us, especially in the millennial and lower age demographics, that we don't realize how social media inclined it is. So for me, I've had to go through different social softwares and through my phone and try to find ways to turn off notifications during specific periods of time, like when I'm having dinner, when I'm getting ready for bed. I use a lot of the do not disturb feature on my phone. I use it every day, and I have it set for a schedule to go on at what time? 11 p.m. and does not turn off until I wake up in the morning. So I don't get notifications through the evening. That's very, very important. If you get all these social media notifications all the time and you're constantly tuned into it, it can affect you. It can affect your mind. For me, it would do a thing where it became very hard to focus on one particular task because I was always expecting another notification to appear that I'd have to pay attention to. That's more particular to the plate maybe of a social media manager, but for anybody who's really tied into social media and trying to be very responsive and engaged, there is a level that is too much, and you have to figure out what that is for you personally.
I don't think that is just for the social media manager, because to your point, I don't think a lot of people think about, I even put things like you're saying, like email, Slack messages, Discord messages, Skype messages, any kind of digital messages that are coming in and trying to pull your attention. I put those in the category of social media. They're all the same. They're all someone else trying to control your attention and trying to control your time and trying to get you to spend your time and attention on them versus on yourself. And so they're all exactly the same, in my opinion, whether that's somebody externally.
Think of all the notifications here for a sec, because you're listing it, and I list like texting, but there's even more. Think about this for a moment. Missed calls, even getting a call, right? You've got an email is a great one. Most of us, I think, have more than one email account. So now you're talking like multiple different email notifications if you have them all on.
Yeah, I've got 4 active accounts right now. 4. And each one, I get like 500 emails a day that aren't filtered out by spam.
It's very easy for the average person online to have so many accounts. And I think on average, the average person has too many accounts. It's so easy to do, especially since everyone's using smartphones now. So I just wanted didn't mean to interrupt you too much there, but I wanted to make it clear to everybody on how many notifications are actually going on in your life and where maybe a lot of the stress comes from in social media and how notifications make themselves into social media. Even a missed call is huge, and it's another notification that's going to distract you from doing whatever you were doing.
So Ross has all of this for all of his clients and obviously for his own personal stuff, but he also has VGF Gamers, which gets tens of thousands of comments and replies every month. So Ross, how do you deal with, this kind of like level of internet celebrity on top of the normal stuff and your profession? What have you learned in order to manage this and in order to stay straight mentally?
It's I don't really think there's any shortcut to making it easier here. I personally gave up all of my personal social media. I get messages like if I get a DM on occasion or something like that, but my personal Facebook, forget it. My personal Twitter, just forget it. I strictly only use VGF Gamers for myself now. But as far as like working with other clients and stuff like that, I think you kind of hit it on it earlier, AWOL. And there's something very important about not just turning your phone off, but like physically leaving it somewhere else. And this is a good challenge that I'd like everybody to try. And I'll be completely open about my experience with this because I've done that a lot recently too. I'll leave my phone in my office and, just go and just be in silence, collect my thoughts for, 30 or so minutes. And then I do always feel better. But having the phone in the room, still having that connection, knowing what's on the phone, knowing the negativity that comes in it, you may not consciously realize it, but you're subconsciously still picking up on it. So the challenge is watch yourself, kind of explore how your mind works when you're in another room from your phone during, and missing out on all these social media notifications. You will notice, and I've noticed this too, that, after a certain amount of time, I will physically go and like reach over to try and grab my phone and it's not there. And that's kind of a really eye-opening experience, kind of like, whoa, okay, this has a lot more control over me than what I thought. So for me, the first step has always been admitting that there is a problem. And that's the quickest way to discover if there's a problem. I hope a lot of people don't have that issue, but if you do, I highly suggest spending time completely away from your computer, from your phone, and really just being with yourself and try to collect your thoughts. And I think you actually said it in a previous episode too, that when you're when you're by yourself and it just seems, even without music, without any outside interference, just you sitting and thinking, you'll be surprised at how quickly you'll get your shit together in your head just by doing that. So that would be my first step on it. Have you guys ever tried that? Have you ever like physically like reached over to grab your phone when it's not there? It's kind of alarming. It's kind of a wake up call.
It is a wake up call. It just shows that, that it's a reflex and it's just a pattern, right? We're pattern based creatures. And so we want to go follow patterns over and over again. But I think where it moves into unhealthy, which happens, I think, immediately within the first day of you having your phone, a certain level of unhealthiness, is that it becomes like a cigarette. And so if you're feeling sad, you smoke that phone, if you will, with this analogy. If you're feeling bored, you smoke that phone. If you're feeling, happy, you smoke that phone. If you want people to recognize you and to get a little bit of a bump out of here, you smoke that phone. It's like a cigarette addiction. I know because I smoke cigarettes, pack a day for 10 years. And it's just like that. And so I think that it's like that for everyone on some level, but for some people, it's much worse. And so being able to put down your phone, so we say, put down your phone and walk away. Like, I'm not suggesting that you go on like some crazy, like walk through the desert or go into nature and like build yourself like a DIY like house or something here. I'm just talking about, stepping away from your office. You guys are all working from home, stepping away from your situation and just taking just 5 minutes to not have your phone, to not have a podcast, to not have music, and just to walk. Just with no stimulus at all in your brain. And your brain needs that. Your brain is not designed to handle that much stimulus all the time. And by having your phone there next to you nonstop, it's like chain smoking cigarettes, basically, for your brain. And you never get a breath. You never get enough air in this analogy if you do that. And so you just need to take a breath every now and then. And yesterday I did this. I was feeling overwhelmed. I started the podcast with you guys at the beginning of the day. I worked straight through for 4.5 hours with no breaks. And the type of work I'm doing, I have 5 monitors. I was doing a live streaming project, managing socials over here, producing a video, doing an edit. And it was all this like really mentally intensive stuff. I walked away. I took a 5-minute walk. Man, I figured out every problem I was stuck on in 5 minutes. Just by putting my phone down and just walking away and getting no stimulus for 5 minutes. It's like freaking magic. Like, your brain is actually pretty useful, but it's not useful if you don't give it any air or any room to actually think for you, if you're constantly pumping it full of information.
I think it's healthy to have to have an activity that is outside of social media, outside of computers in general, realistically. A great example that most of you probably have is an instrument, guitar, piano, and try not to use your phone for, music tabs or something like that. I mean, even for 15 minutes, just stepping away, playing your instrument, going for a walk. If you have a specific activity that you are into, that interests you, that you can build up, especially if it's like a skill that you can build up over time that isn't social media, that's huge. It's also sometimes something you can translate into social media. There's tons of music creators out there. That's a decent example as one. You guys know Phantom Limb, right? Have you ever run into Phantom Phone where you don't have your phone on you, but you feel the vibration in your pocket where it normally would be, but you don't actually have your phone on you? Has that ever happened to you before?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. Does it give you anxiety when that happens suddenly? Like when you suddenly realize your phone is not there and you're like, oh shit, where's my phone?
Yeah, you want to talk about the one thing you freak out about. I mean, it used to be your wallet. And don't get me wrong, your wallet's important. But I don't know. Like, you don't necessarily even need your wallet anymore. You can pay for stuff with your phone, and you can basically unlock the entire world with your phone. It's more important than your wallet now. It's more important than your ID and your credit cards. It's literally the most important object in every single person's life now is this device. It's a really good point. And to your point there, whenever you experience phantom phone, it's and you like think you felt a notification in your pocket or whatever, and that feeling of stress that you have in that moment, that is the power that your phone and social media has over you. And it's also the negativity that it or the stress that it can bring to you every single time you get a regular notification that's actually real. And so you feel that in that moment, and you notice it in that moment. Now, that's times 100, guys, over the course of the day. Every time you get called to attention by your phone and you feel that stress to like, oh shit, what is it? I got to flip through here and find out what somebody said. That's a moment of stress most of the time, not a moment of happiness. Sometimes it's happiness, but most of the time it's stress of like the unknown and having to discover the unknown and get control over this situation that's always happening in your hand. So phantom phone is a great indicator of what each one of those little moments is actually for your body and for your brain.
Yeah, depending on what's going on, like I will get that feeling of, and it's funny you said that, before you even know if it's a good text or a positive text or whatever it may be, you get that anxiety, you get that terrible anxiety. I get it sometimes when, like, if I notice that I haven't had got an email within like an hour or something like that, and I go and refresh my phone, I know I get that really anxious feeling like, oh God, I don't want to have to sit here and see all these emails pour in, everything I got to do. It's just a constant reminder. One thing that I've learned that it's very important to do, go kind of on the same path of staying away from your phone and stuff, if at all possible, is starting your day that way. How you start your day, in my opinion, is incredibly important to how the outcome of your day is going to turn out. That's one reason why I go to bed early at night and get up early in the morning. And I get up early in the morning because usually at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's not a lot going on. You're not getting text messages from people. You're not getting emails. There's not a whole lot going on in the news or on social media because they know that nobody's up to post anything that would be relevant. So usually for about an hour and a half, then I can put my phone down, and it's very easy in the morning because you're still a little groggy. You haven't really started to think about your day, and you can just really put yourself in a peaceful moment for a half hour, 45 minutes, just have a cup of coffee. I usually literally just stand at my counter and just think about the stuff that I have to do for the day. And that's been incredibly beneficial. Perrin, I know you said you had some tips and tricks. What's your morning routine like?
I don't use my phone. Well, I mean, I have a sleeping app, so I do see my phone in first thing in the morning, and I use it for my alarm. But I just keep it on my bedside, and then I normally get up, I get cleaned up, make breakfast, feed my cat, and I normally don't see my phone again until I come up to my office. So my whole morning routine, the only time my phone is involved is in waking me up. But the sleep app that I use, which is just Sleep Cycle, if you guys want to give it a shot, I like it. It has a soft alarm, so it wakes you up gradually instead of an alarm that's loud and obnoxious right away. It like gradually fades in, and it's really nice for waking you up out of REM sleep and things like that. So I'll do that. And in terms of starting day, I want to talk end of day too, because this is a situation that I would run into particularly, and I had to learn some things around it. So as I would get client work from different time zones, I most often would get clients from Pacific time zone. I'm in Eastern, so they're 3 hours behind. And I would run into this situation where it's late in the evening, like 11 my time, and you get like the gung-ho people from Pacific time, still trying to do work even past 5 p.m. And I would get a Slack notification about something important that I probably needed to do at like 11 p.m. And this would like wreck my evening. So when that would happen, you get the anxiety, the stress, like, oh, now I've got this thing I need to do. And I've got that right before I'm trying to go to sleep. And it would just really wreck my ability to sleep. So the thing that I had to do to solve that was just turn off Slack notifications past 5 p.m. my time, because it's important as a social media manager and as a remote consultant or as just an employee in general to be responsive, obviously. But also, don't always set up that you're going to be responsive past a certain period of your time, because people will abuse that. So if they know as a remote consultant or as a worker that, hey, if they send a message to you at like 11 p.m. your time, you'll respond and probably take care of it. That can make you look pretty good, but you have to look at what kind of standard that sets for you. they're going to abuse that later down the road. It would probably be a better standard to set if they contact you that time. You're not going to respond until the next day. And it's okay to not respond until the next day. Things can wait. There are things that sometimes are really important, but normally they can wait till the next day.
That's a great point. Let's end on that. So I do the same thing. I maybe, like, people complain that I'm the worst about this, actually. Because I have Do Not Disturb on my phone pretty much all day long. So I actually don't let notifications control me at all.
I started doing that too recently, actually.
My phone doesn't even ring. I don't even let people call me. That's how much I take control of my mental health, because there is so much going on at all times for me. And so whenever I'm available to check my phone and my notifications, I will very deliberately do it. And I'll check them all. I'll check all the important ones. And then when I put my phone down, no one can contact me. And I know that you might be like, that's crazy. But what if somebody has to get a hold of you right now? Guess what? They don't. Did you know that they don't have to get a hold of you right now? They just don't. You think they do, but they don't. Like, that's just in your head, man. And like, maybe you're an emergency worker, or like you're a security person or a police officer, and somebody has to like actually get a hold of you right now, but they don't have to get a hold of you right now. They can just get a hold of you in 10 minutes. It's okay. See you in the next episode of the Digital Drop Podcast, where you should enable notifications on all social media platforms every time we go live, okay? Because, because we demand your time and attention. Because we're the good ones. We're not the bad ones taking away from your life and giving you stress, right? All right, if you want to check out the replays from our show, we have the video replays up on YouTube, Digital Drop Podcast on YouTube, and we're on every single podcasting platform if you want to listen to the audio version of our show while you're on a drive or what have you. Please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We have thousands of fans, but only a handful of our fans have actually given us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Please do that, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern here on the Digital Drop Podcast live on Twitter. Adios, amigos, and disable notifications except for ours.